honors and lifts up these tribes. Okay. With humility, we recognize how much we benefit from living on their land and water, and the Seattle Community Police Commission honors and lifts these tribes. We hope that this acknowledgement will encourage authentic relationships with urban Native people and all Coast Salish tribes. And at this time, I will take attendance. Prachi Dave. Reverend Patricia Hunter is present. Reverend Harriet Walden. Thank you. Good morning. Mary Ruffin.
Present.
Good morning. And Asha Muhammad. Joseph Saia. Elena Santian.
Present.
Good morning. Erica Newman.
Present.
Good morning. Tasha Johnson.
Present, and good morning.
And good morning. Lajaya Washington. Suzette Dickerson. Officer Mark Mullins. I think I saw Officer Mullins.
Suzette is here.
Oh, and Suzette, are you here too?
Yeah,
Okay. We see Suzette Dickerson, Officer Mullins is here, Joel Merkel.
Present. Good morning.
Good morning, and Jeremy Wood. Okay, thank you.
Jeremy's not here?
Not yet.
Well, we have the draft agenda before us. I'm happy to entertain a motion to receive the agenda.
Wait for the chair to make a motion to approve the agenda from last time meeting. 423.
Oh, that's you're talking about
The minutes, I just,
minutes.
the agenda for today.
Well, let me put my plate back over. I make a motion to approve the agenda for today.
Thank you, Reverend Walden. It's been moved. Is there a second to approve the agenda?
This is Tasha Johnson, and I second the approval.
Tasha.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I move.
Thank you, Tasha. For the second, it's been moved and seconded that we receive the agenda for today. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? I mean, not nay for me, but say that. And any abstentions? Okay. The agenda is approved. And the minutes were also sent out, distributed. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from January 4th, 2023.
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you. Elena has moved. Is there a second to approve the minutes?
I'll step away from the chair in a second.
Thank you, Joel. So it's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes from January 4th, 2023. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, the motion is carried, and we will accept the minutes from January 4th, 2023. There are no action items to review at this time, and we will go right into public comment at this meeting. So, Logan, would you assist us with that, please?
Yes. If you would like to make public comment, please raise your hand now as I pull up the public comment timer. All right. Good morning, Mr. Gale. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, go ahead and start.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. My comment today concerns public comment and the CPC's unique approach to using public comment as a means to attack and discredit members of the public. This was done once again at the last CPC meeting in response to my comment about the person brutally murdered by the SPD 1 year ago in January, who remains unnamed. The CPC spent staff time in an effort to gaslight the public on this issue. The original campaign to, quote, say her name, came out of Black Lives Matter movement in 2014 and developed into Say Their Names, which, as Kimberly Crenshaw stated, quote, if you say the name, you're prompted to learn the story, and if you know the story, then you have a broader sense of all the ways Black bodies are made vulnerable to police violence, unquote. Certainly, after 9 years, you know that, but you have come to embrace the opposite of that by gaslighting the community into believing that the reason the name of the person killed last year is not known is because you claim, quote, out of respect for the family of the person who was killed, we are not sharing that name, unquote. This is nothing more than disinformation that the CPC actually does not know what the family wants. Further, the CPC failed to learn that King County Council, working with me last year, passed legislation to make all such names fully public and easily accessible. In King County, where every such homicide will result in a public high-profile inquest, the notion of keeping the name hidden does nothing to protect the family and is only about protecting the police and the failed accountability systems. The top conclusion provided last year by the consultants of the CPC hired was, I quote, the CPC's engagement of the public is subject to much criticism regarding who it engages and how. The CPC lacks depth. CPC is viewed as uninvolved and disconnected from the community, only engaging voices they agree with. Clearly, the CPC has now fully embraced this shameful identity. Thank you.
All right, would anybody else like to make public comment? If you would like to comment, please raise your hand now. And I'm not seeing any other commenters.
Thank you, Logan, for assisting us with the public comment, and thank you, Dr. Gale, for your comment. Is there anyone that would like to respond to any of the commissioners or staff to the public comment?
I'd like to know who he was, what that was referring to. I'm not, I don't remember that specifically. Whose name we decided not to mention out of respect for the family.
Right, that was our last meeting that was mentioned. We'll move on to the co-chair updates. And I don't have an update either of my co-chairs. If you have something that you would like to share at this time, please feel free.
I have here, I'll go on camera so folks can see me here. Good morning, everyone. The co-chair Joel Merkel. I have just a brief update, which is kind of more of a request. A couple meetings ago, we shared the work group assignments, and the staff and the co-chairs are really excited to get the work groups back up and running. I know a couple of them have already met, but this is just another reminder. If you could please reach out to Kali if you haven't already heard from Kali. If you haven't heard from Kali, it's probably because she sent an email to your city email and you don't have access to it at the moment. But I know Kali has reached out to everyone regarding work groups, but it's really important that the work groups are meeting regularly. So please work with Kali on getting those regular work group meetings going, so we can start sharing the work product of those work groups to regular commission meetings. So that's my update.
Thank you. Reverend Malden, anything from you?
No.
Okay. We do not have an executive director's report at this meeting. And so now we will move on to the work group updates. or any staff department updates.
So my update is going to be in the legislative session update, which also includes the state legislative agenda work group update. So I will hold off on that.
Okay, great.
Communications, will just add that if anyone does not have, any commissioners do not have a working government email, please contact me again. We have updated all of them as requested, and you will be seeing commissioner in front of your name now as a decision by the city. So hopefully everybody's up and running, but if not, just let me know.
Thank you, Megan.
Community engagement, we don't have very many updates, working on a different platform still, and still looking for topics for upcoming meetings.
Okay. Thank you so much. Any other work group updates or staff updates? Okay, I don't believe there's any new business at this point, and so we will go into some other department updates. And is there, I think I saw Newell here from the City Council. Do you have an update for us?
Thank you, Reverend Hunter. The only
You're
update
welcome.
I have at this point is that yesterday the council approved the reappointment of 3 CPC members. That is, I think 3 of the 4 potential reappointments have been taken care of. The next meeting of the Public Safety and Human Services Committee is going to be on, I believe, Tuesday, the 24th. That's all I have at this
Great.
time.
Great, thank you so much.
If I could just add to that, thank you, Newell. I should have mentioned this earlier, but it was my pleasure to present to the City Council last week the reappointment of Commissioners Alina Santillan, Erica Newman, and Mark Mullins. So thank you to City Council for having that hearing on their reappointment, and thanks to each of you for being willing to continue serving.
Thank you. Is there an update from the mayor's office? Okay. And I think I saw Mr. Ward from the monitoring team.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
I believe that Dr. Richard Rosenthal, consultant on the monitor team's accountability methodology, has been in direct counsel with the co-chairs. So you will be familiar and able to articulate to the rest of the council what is occurring with regard to interviews of and presentations to the CPC in that regard. Other than that, I have no other report from the monitor.
Thank you. Yes, the co-chairs have been in touch with Mr. Rosenthal, Dr. Rosenthal. Is there any update from the DOJ?
Hi, everyone. We don't have an update for you this week.
Okay, thank you. How about from the Office of Police Accountability? Is there an update?
No, nothing from OPA this week. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And any updates from the Office of the Inspector General?
Hi, we just have a quick one. We're currently drafting the SARE Wave 4 report, hoping to get that out in the next month or so. It will be the final report that we release from that process. And then we're focusing on the transition from the monitoring team to the OIG for some of those assessments. And I think that's it for us right now. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And I see Brian Maxey here from the Seattle Police Department. Do you have an update for us?
Yes, good morning. Thank
Good morning.
you. I mean, first off, I'll have to recognize that we are very, very pleased that Chief Adrian Diaz was confirmed and finally sworn in as our permanent chief. That really bodes well for the police department, and we're very optimistic moving into 2023 about what we're going to be able to accomplish. Along those same lines, I'm also pleased to announce that Heather Marks, who is the former Director of Mobility for the Seattle Department of Transportation, has now joined SPD as our new Executive Director of Strategic Initiatives. She'll be managing many of our critical projects and working with our intergovernmental partners. She brings a wealth of experience in navigating the city systems and certainly understands how Seattle works, although she is new to policing, but that is a perspective that we welcome. And already she's asking important questions and challenging us to take a hard look at our processes and why we do what we do. So welcome to Heather. And then the last part of last update, I think, is that SPD presented our Before the Badge program at a CPC community meeting last week. It was difficult to tell whether it was well received because most of the comments were not related to the content of what we presented, but we really did appreciate the forum and the opportunity to talk about what we're doing. I would submit that's an important part of our work together, SPD and CPC, is to help explain what it is we're doing and why, and offer it up to the community for feedback. So really, really appreciate that opportunity. Thank you all.
Thank you, Brian. We will move into our next presentation by Dr. Collie Mortensen on the 2023 legislative session updates.
Hi, thank you, Reverend Hunter.
Welcome.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And hopefully that works. Can everybody see that? So these are the slides I'm going to be going through today. So this is, as I mentioned, an update from staff, because this is what a lot of the policy team has been working on, as well as an update from the work group, State Legislative Affairs work group. I've sent a number of messages to commissioners, including a couple of documents yesterday that I really hope we have a chance to vote on, because basically the CPC policy staff needs some authority to be able to act quickly in this respect. So let me just sort of go through and explain what those are about, and also give you an update on what's happening with the legislature and what to expect of the legislative process this year. Okay, so this is our ordinance, and this is what gives us authority to be part of the legislative process. We are specifically charged to identify and advocate for reforms to state laws. That process happens right now between January 9th and April 23rd, assuming everything ends on time. So the process reforms to state laws that enhance public trust and confidence in policing and the criminal justice system. So that's what we are doing, the policy team and the State Legislative Affairs Work Group. CPC is also charged to review and provide input to OPA, OIG, SPD, and other city departments and offices, including the mayor, council, and city attorney, on the police accountability system, police services, policies, and practices of significance to the public. So what does that mean about the legislative agenda for this year? Well, we are part of the City of Seattle, and the Office of Intergovernmental Relations are effectively the lobbyists for the city, advancing the city's agenda in multiple domains. For example, with other states, with other countries even, but for our purposes, with the state legislature during this process. And so as they described it, this is in their own words, the mayor's office and the city council does the agenda setting, the goals for what the city across all departments, all topics wants to accomplish in a given legislative agenda. The Office of Intergovernmental Relations, OIR, are the lobbyists for the city. They're the people that do the work and work with the legislators to move these things forward. And departments, for these purposes, that's us, that's CPC and our policy staff. We provide bill analysis to help inform Seattle support or opposition to a bill in the legislature. And the lobbyists and OIR count on us to be able to provide this policy analysis. So when a bill is assigned from OIR, there's a whole bunch of bills. There's over 1,000 now. When I checked this morning, there was over 1,200 bills. It happens really fast. There's a lot going on. But when they're assigned to a variety of different departments that might have some input. So for example, things related to policing would be assigned to SPD, and they do reviews on them, as well as CPC, the law department, OIG, OPA, and anyone else that might have input on the content of a different bill. So CPC uniquely provides this bill analysis from the community side of the civilian oversight perspective. That's why it's so important for staff to be able to respond to bills and be part of this process. The Office of Intergovernmental Relations also will coordinate or give testimony on especially important bills. I talked to them yesterday, and part of what I'm going to give you is a big overview from their perspective about what's going to happen because they weren't able to attend. But they wanted me to make clear to all of the commissioners, this is very important, that if you're testifying in Olympia or remotely with advocacy organizations, you have to state that you're testifying in an individual capacity and make that part of your testimony. If you want to testify as part of CPC and advocacy that we do, I'll get to that a little bit later, that's something that we would coordinate with OIR. And as I mentioned in the email that I sent, the State Legislative Affairs Work Group, which is Suzette Dickerson, Joel Merkel, and myself, welcome any and all input into the current session and want you to reach out to your communities to gather input into bills being considered in the 2023 legislative session so that we can develop CPC's stance on these bills, especially major bills that I'll talk about shortly. I welcome anyone who's interested to join me for testimony in Olympia and to talk with those of us that are working on the State Legislative Affairs Work Group to give your input on any of these bills, as well as I welcome the public to give input as well. We're supposed to be representative of the community's perspective on these bills when we're doing these analyses. So our email address is ocpc@seattle.gov. I'll bring that up later. And I encourage anyone that wants to provide input from this perspective to join us there and share that with us. Okay, a little bit more information about the general oversight of what's coming in the legislative session from the Office of Intergovernmental Relations. So there's a couple of key things that happened. The majority party, which is the Democrats, expanded their majorities in both houses. Overall, the top priority for this session, not policing, it's housing. If you're following legislative session, if you're wondering what's going on, housing is the #1 thing by far. One of the changes that has come as a result of the changes in majorities, the changes in leadership in both houses, is now there's 2 standalone housing committees. In prior years, they used to be bundled with other topics, but now there are standalone committees. So everything related to housing is going through those committees. The governor is also planning on proposing a referendum to expand state bond capacity specifically for the Housing Trust Fund to about $6 billion. And if that's passed by the legislature, that would have to go to the voters. Another big priority in the legislative session in general is Blake decision fixes. And this might be something you're familiar with. The policy is sunsetting, the legislature must act, but as of today, there have been no proposals introduced yet. So what is there specifically with regards to police accountability legislation? So one of the big topics that's going to come up, and it's going to take a long time, this is something that I would like the CPC and the commissioners to have a rich discussion to decide how we want to engage with this topic, is vehicular pursuit by police. So in 2021, there were a number of changes to vehicular pursuit laws and the ability of police to engage in vehicular pursuits. And there were some kinds of fixes last year, but in this session, there are already 4 different bills about this topic. And because this is a major topic in terms of police accountability, this is something that we want to discuss and have more discussions on as we go further through the process. So I will say, when I checked this morning, there are no hearings on any of these bills scheduled yet, but the hearings are generally scheduled for the next week on Wednesday night. So this might happen. Just be aware of that. Another thing in terms of police accountability legislation has to do with the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability agenda. And I also sent that along as part of the materials for this meeting to the commissioners. They have effectively a 4-point legislative agenda, which some of the bills have already been introduced and some have not. So the first one is a decriminalizing traffic stops bill. This is expected to be introduced by my representative, Chapalo Street, but it's not there yet, so I haven't had a chance to look at the bill text. The next bill is House Bill 1025. I had included this in a couple different items, and we'll talk about it later, but this is a bill about basically ending qualified immunity. This is also part of the city's legislative agenda that I hope that we can vote on, the commissioners can vote on today. The next one is Attorney General investigations. This bill dropped this morning at 7:30, so I haven't had a chance to read the bill text yet, but that will be House Bill 1445, and this would put in the Attorney General's office at the state level the ability to do more investigations and reform of police departments. And then the final bill, which again has not dropped yet, so I don't know what the text looks like, is about an independent prosecutor for police use of deadly force from Representative Stonier. That's coming, and that's on the WCPA, Washington Coalition for Police Accountability legislation and their agenda. So now we get to the parts, and I included these documents for you, and I hope that you have a chance to look at them. The first one that I'm going to bring up is I would like the commissioners to hopefully vote on support for the City of Seattle's 2023 legislative agenda. If you're looking at this at home, this one is called 2023 SEC Legislative Priorities. And I've sent this along a couple times, but basically the City of Seattle through Resolution 32076 has 4 paragraphs out of a 17-page single-space document that outlines every single thing the city wants to accomplish. There's 4 paragraphs that are relevant to policing. And I created and sent along to you a 12-point summary of what those 4 paragraphs look like. The document that you have includes the relevant paragraphs as well as the 12-point summaries. Would it be helpful for me to go through each one of those?
Yeah, I think so.
Put them in a slide. Okay. So again, I encourage you, if you're at home or if you're here, to please look at this document. And I'll just read off the 12 points. It's a summary of these paragraphs. So first is enhanced authority for police chiefs to discipline officers, including the ability to lay off officers on the Brady list. The second is ending qualified immunity for law enforcement. So this is what I just mentioned, Representative Ty's bill, House Bill 1025. The third is to prohibit collective bargaining on topics related to discipline, appeals, subpoena authority, and state reforms about law enforcement. The fourth is to require police reforms that free local jurisdictions from having to negotiate and pay for accountability reforms, including body-worn cameras. The fifth is reform of civil service hearings and arbitration in law enforcement officer discipline cases. The sixth is to remove private arbitration as a route of appeal in law enforcement officer discipline cases. The seventh is support for independent prosecutions of deadly force by law enforcement. That connects to one of the initiatives or one of the legislative goals of Washington Coalition for Police Accountability that I mentioned yet, but the bill has not been dropped yet. The next is extending employment in law enforcement, fire, and other public agencies to legal permanent residents and those with DACA status. There is already a bill introduced on that one. The next is expansion of law enforcement training for de-escalation training and implicit bias. Next, increased flexibility for civilian personnel to respond to 911 calls, specifically referencing the CAHOOTS program. Next is reducing or eliminating city and county law enforcement involvement in immigration law enforcement. And finally, restricting local jurisdictions from honoring ICE detainers without a federal criminal warrant. So this was introduced by the mayor's office and it was voted on and supported by City Council on December 13th of 2022. So what I would like is to know, I would like a vote from the commissioners if you would support the City of Seattle's legislative agenda. And I'm gonna hand it over to the co-chairs for what this process looks like.
Is now the time for that?
We can also put this off until the end of the presentation if you think that'd be better.
Well, yeah, let's just do one at a time. You've already talked about the WCPA and then now you've brought up the mayor's agenda, right? Well, I just want to chime in to say, you know, as a co-chair and as a member of the legislative advocacy committee, legislative agenda committee, what I will say is generally the CPC, as everyone knows, is an independent city department, and we have the right under our ordinance to chart our own legislative agenda if we so choose, even if it is in conflict with the city's agenda. However, in order to do so, we have to meet certain deadlines, which we did not do last fall. But fortunately, the city's legislative agenda related to police accountability, in my view, is fairly robust and strong and consistent with the CPC's values. There are, as Kali mentioned, 12 points. I think, from my understanding, there are various degrees of viability for each of those items. Some probably have no chance or might not even have a bill. Others may have chances, but from my review of the city's legislative agenda, I think it is worth the commission's support. And that's my take as a commissioner, independent commissioner, or an individual commissioner, sorry. And when the appropriate time comes, if there's any questions or debate or discussion, I think that would be great too.
Are there any other comments regarding the city's legislative agenda?
Thank you for your work on this, Dr. Gali. I'm happy to vote in support of this too when it comes to that time. This is a lot of work and I really appreciate that, especially the 12-point summary. I know that took you some time, so I really, really appreciate that.
Thank you, Elena. Any other comments? Well, I would be happy to entertain a motion in support on the mayor's legislative agenda, state legislative agenda.
I'll step away from the chair and make a motion to put it on the vote for it.
Okay. Reverend Walden is moving that the Seattle Community Police Commission support the mayor's state legislative agenda. Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Dickerson. I will go ahead and second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that the Seattle Community Police Commission approve or and support the City of Seattle's state legislative agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say no.
No.
Thank you. Any abstentions? Okay, the motion is carried. So we are offering our support. So
And just have a comment.
of course.
I think this is the most robust recommendations that come out of the mayor's office in a long time. This is really pretty cool.
Great.
I think so.
I had a comment. I just want to thank Dr. Ellis for putting all the work in. And I also want to thank the commissioners for coming prepared today to discuss it and to vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much all. And as I said in my email, I encourage all of you to read the entire legislative agenda. It's extremely detailed. It covers a wide variety of topics, but I appreciate your support. And I think this will be helpful as a staff member moving forward to know that you have support for this one. So now there's another one. You probably noticed on the agenda, there's a second one. This is a staff request. As I mentioned, we work with the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. They have a lot of bills that they assign to us and all the other agencies citywide that they need input on very, very quickly. And there's a number of bills that are not major bills. So we will have extended discussions and more information about bills like vehicular pursuit, for example, but these are minor bills, very small bills. And I want to bring your attention to the document that I sent along. It's titled For a Vote 2023 State Legislative Statement of Values. An example that we've already worked on, the policy staff, of these kind of small bills that are still related to policing have to do with, for example, establishing a missing and murdered Indigenous persons cold case unit in the Attorney General's office. That was heard in committee yesterday. Another one is allowing impact fee revenue to be utilized by law enforcement for capital development projects. Another one is sharing unredacted police body camera footage with defense attorneys earlier as part of the discovery process. All of those have already gone through the committee process. They're already pretty far along in the legislative agenda, and we have to comment on them as staff, sometimes within 24 hours to get our voice heard. And so this request for a vote or discussion on a statement of values from the CPC, again, is to help support staff as we make sure that we have some comment and some involvement in this process for these minor bills. Of course, major bills will always be brought to the State Legislative Agenda Work Group and the Commission for Advocacy. And as I mentioned, any bills, if there's anything that you want us to cover that seems minor to us but is major to you, please bring that to our attention and we will elevate that and we can bring that to a discussion. As I said before, always we welcome input from the commissioners and the community at ocpc@seattle.gov. So the statement of values, the document that I shared along, is to ask for basically giving policy staff the authority based on these values to do quick turnarounds for OIR on these bills. So the statement of values would say that we support legislation that's consistent with our ordinance 125315, that recognizes the independence of the CPC to assess the applicability of policies to community concerns separately from the goals of the city, and that promotes effective constitutional policing that facilitates the trust, respect, and support of the community, and that addresses community concerns when applicable as expressed in this ordinance. So for this one, this is a vote to basically allow us to use these values to guide us as staff in writing quick turnaround bill analyses for the city. Are there any questions? Commissioner Santian.
Thank you. I just wanted to say again, thank you for your work on this. I'm in full support of the policy team having the freedom to comment on these bills. I know how fast legislative session works. I also wanted to just make a comment on the missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit. I think if, we give a land acknowledgement, I've said this a long time ago, and we did it maybe for 2 meetings and then we stopped doing it. But I think it's really important, what I've heard from Native and Indigenous communities, like when we're giving land acknowledgements, for it not just to be something that we are making a statement, but that we are sharing something about that community, or we are finding ways to build authentic relationships with people who share that identity. And I think that this is a great opportunity for us, if we don't already have those relationships, to begin building them. Who are the other Native and Indigenous folks that are testifying or advocating on that bill, and how can we support and elevate their voices and build collective power there? I'm also curious, is this across the state, or is this just for that specific ordinance, just for the city of Seattle?
So the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Task Force, the bill, and I'm happy to send you all those materials and the link to the video of the hearing yesterday, which might be very informative for you. That is in the Attorney General's office, so it would apply to everyone in the entire state.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course.
I'll just comment briefly as an Assistant Attorney General, stepping away from my role as a chair and a commissioner. As an Assistant Attorney General, I know that this is an executive request bill from my boss, Bob Ferguson, to establish that office within the Attorney General's office. So it would absolutely be statewide, and the office is pleased that it's making progress so far. And as stepping back into my role as a commissioner, I just want to thank Commissioner Santian for his comments on that.
Any other comments on the statement of values before we vote? I would entertain a motion that the CPC statement of values that is based on our ordinances that will guide staff decision-making, that I would entertain a motion to that effect.
I'll put forth a motion to support the policy team being able to make comments on this legislative body of work based on the statement of values of the CPC.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Commissioner Ruffin, I'll second it.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more discussion on the motion? The motion is that we approve the statement of values that will guide our policy team as they do their work. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Say nay. Any abstentions? Great. The statement of values is unanimously approved.
Thank you very much for your support. This is going to help the policy team tremendously as we comment on bills from the CPC perspective. That's all I have as part of my presentation, but I encourage anyone to reach out to me. Please share the values of your community, any input from the communities on what we're doing. We are eager to hear from you and we welcome your input. Thank you.
Community policy staff for getting this, we really work on this. This is really important work, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I too would like to offer my congratulations and thanks to the policy team for this level of work and this amount of work in a short period of time and bringing it to the commission. So thank you very, very much.
For recognizing that it is a quick turnaround time, and that we're structured to have a lag time. I mean, the way that we're structured and to be able to get there. I mean, I'm going to Olympia and getting these hearings, being in these hearings, and be able to have a quick turnaround, and then have us to be able to participate in these very important decisions. And I'm really glad to see that the Attorney General's office is going to be highlighting this, the missing Indigenous women. I mean, separately from the chair, this feminist mothers have been involved with that, with the group. Talked to a few of the women who've been on my Mother's Justice show. And it's really important to know that Seattle King County has more missing and endangered Indigenous women than any other city in America. And it's time for, we read our acknowledgement here every time. And this is a good way to actually be involved with what this acknowledgement means, that we do care about Indigenous women and the missing Native people who have kept this land good for 1,000 years before all of us arrived. I'm really glad to see this level. And also I'm glad to see that the level of police accountability on the state level. I mean, it's a lot of things that people say that we're not doing, but I think the possibility of to have statewide police accountability in every police department, I really does up levels it and get Seattle the complaints about Seattle off the table as much, because if we can get policing for all the people in the state of Washington to be at a higher level, I think that that's a good place for the CPC and other people who are interested in police accountability to also hit their wagon too.
Oh, I'm just going to say also thanks to Commissioner Dickerson, Commissioner Wood, and Merkel for your support of the policy team.
One thing I'd just like to add before we move on to the next part of the agenda is I just want to echo what Commissioner Santillan mentioned a minute ago about how important it is for the commission to build relationships, particularly with Indigenous communities, but also with the community writ large. When we are able to move more nimbly as a commission in support of legislation that is reflective of our values and the community's values, it makes us, it just makes it that much more important. So the support of the statement of values and the work that the staff put in is going to make us more responsive and help us elevate those voices. And so I want to thank Commissioner Santillan for reflecting that in his comments, and also for the commission on being prepared to discuss these issues and voting on it today. So thank you.
And I have
Officer
one
Muller.
last.
Yes, Officer Muller.
I'd just like to say, make a comment. I will admit that I am the one who voted no but we don't get a chance when we vote to explain we vote a certain way. So I just wanted to say that I do appreciate the staff's work. It's a tremendous amount of work, and I do appreciate all the work that they've done. I also support the fact that we recognize Indigenous people in this area, and I am all behind that. I don't want anyone to think that I am not in support of that. There are certain items, though, within these bills that I disagree with, even sometimes slightly. If we could just adjust them a little bit. Not totally. I don't disagree with all of them totally. So this is the reason why I voted no. I am not a person who is sitting here as a police officer saying that we don't need reform. Reform is wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Officer Moles.
Thank you, Officer Mullen. Yes, Dr. Colley, you have more.
Oh, the very last thing I wanted to say, I will be reporting on this to the commission every 2 weeks. But also, if you go to our website, I have a weekly Twitter video update that happens every single week on Friday that recaps what happened during the week. So I encourage you to follow our Twitter feed, watch those videos, and share them with anyone else that's interested in this topic. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank
Great,
you.
thank you. Great. Also, Dr. Colley, my apologies for only using half of your name and Ellis and not just Mortensen. So my apologies there. I want to make sure that gets corrected. Next on our agenda, we will move into executive session. We will not be returning. Executive session will last approximately 30 minutes, and then we will end our CPC meeting. Commissioners, I trust you have the link for the executive session. If there's anyone that does not have the link, please say so now.
I don't have the link. This is Commissioner Dickerson.
Okay.
Officer Mullins.
Okay, the link, what we will have it resent. The link for executive session is in the same email that was sent out yesterday that included the link to this regular session. It's just at the very bottom of that email, but it sounds like Commissioner Dickerson and Commissioner Mullins need it again, Logan.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Is there anybody else before I send the or resend the link?
Can it be sent to my personal email, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
That is.
Logan, this is Commissioner Something. If you'll sit, I don't know why I referred to this is Alina. I don't know why I referred to myself that way. Will you also send it to my personal email? Thank you.
Yes, Alina, is that the SeattleAntiracism.org email?
That's correct.
Wonderful.
I see Mr. Ward is raising his hand.
Yes. Mr. Ward?
Sorry, Ron, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Will the 12-point police summary prepared by your policy committee that was distributed to the commissioners be distributed publicly? And also, I request on behalf of the monitor team that I be sent a copy at the conclusion of this meeting.
Yes, I will.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the items should be posted on the website as well, but we will make sure it gets sent to you, Mr. Ward.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Go ahead.
This part of the meeting is ended, and we will go into executive session, but we will not return to the general CPC meeting. Thank you all.
I just sent it. It should be on its way.
Recording stopped.